Alright, let's get started. We are going to be dehydrating and rehydrating sourdough starter. We do this so that we can make it shelf stable and be able to recreate our starter if something happens to ours. If you just want to rehydrate your sourdough starter, then skip to 4 minutes. We are starting with our sourdough starter that is fully risen and would be what we would bake with if we were making bread. I'm going to put some of that on a cooking sheet, and then I'm going to spread it as thin as I possibly can. The thinner this is, the better it's going to grind into a powder later. Mine was slightly thick, so it ended up being more like almost sand with some larger chunks, which still worked. So as thin as you possibly can get it, and then you can either dehydrate it in the oven at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for about 3 to 4 hours or until it's completely dry, or you can just leave it out overnight and wait for it to fully dry that way. Okay, it is dry, it breaks apart super easy, and I'm going to grind it up. And you can do this with a mortar and pestle like this, or you can use a blender like I did. My son loves the sound of the blender for some reason, so he always dances around when I'm blending. So I'm going to blend it into a powder, and then I'm going to put it in a completely dry jar to store for later. Alright, we have our dehydrated sourdough starter. Now we're going to rehydrate it. This is going to take somewhere between 4 and 7 days. I am using a scale just for the first couple feedings so I don't overwhelm the dehydrated starter. I'm going to zero it out with the jar and add 5 grams of discard to the jar. I went a little over at 6, and the only difference that makes is I just need to put 6 grams of warm water in instead of 5. It needs to be a 1-to-1 ratio. Once I have added the 6 grams of water, I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes and then do its first feeding. To feed it, I am going to add 5 grams of flour and 5 grams of water, and then gently put the lid on top and just let it sit for 12 hours. This is what it looks like right now as it is starting to rehydrate. And this is 12 hours later. I'm going to add a little bit of flour. I'm going to try to double how much is in my jar. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water and going to mix it up and cover it back up again. As you can see, there is slight bubbling already, but it's not super active yet. Alright, 12 hours later again, I'm going to feed it again, and I'm going to continue this every 12 hours for 2 days before I start discarding. And to do that, you just remove half of the starter before you add the flour and the water. Keep on going until day 4, which is this right here. Day 4. It is super bubbly now. I'm going to be switching from 12-hour feedings to 24-hour feedings. And that is it.